A triple header of NBA playoff action on this Tuesday. That means 3 games. 2 of the 3 series feature a potential series-clinching spot tonight. And we start with the first. Inside Madison Square Garden, the New York Knicks hold a 3-1 series advantage over the Philadelphia 76ers. And New York, based on the odds, favored to win this series in only 5 games tonight. New York now a 4.5-point favorite for game number 5. Total stands at 203. Will this series follow the odds? Does New York win the series tonight inside the Mecca?
Let's take a look at some things that are changing here over the landscape over just the last half hour here. Overnight, that line is -5.5 as a favorite here at the FanDuel Sportsbook towards the New York Knicks. Now we see it been at 4.5 here, so that line is dropping. Total of 201, now up to 203. And I do agree with that. I think we get a little bit more scoring than we saw in that last game. That was a battle in Philadelphia that Brunson won out in the end over Joel Embiid. Now here's the question. Does Brunson even have to beat Joel Embiid tonight? And what type of performance will we get from Joel Embiid? Because he missed shoot-around this morning with a migraine headache, which can be debilitating if anybody knows how migraines work. So maybe extra Imitrex here for the big man before he plays tonight. But it seems like we're already building in those excuses for the Sixers, which also includes Kelly Oubre, who missed shoot-around, who's not feeling all that well. So in a game where if you lose, you are getting sent home, the stories are starting to write themselves. So for my money in this game, it's going to be tough for me, Ben, to sell you, Ben, on what actually is going to happen in this game as a positive notion for the Philadelphia 76ers. Because what do you usually want to happen? That happening with the other team, not the team that you're looking to back in this game. So if you come into this game and you bet the Philadelphia 76ers and say, I'll take the 4.5 points, I think they play close, and B plays well, Oubre plays well, Maxey plays well, in what we know is going to be a hostile environment in the Garden, so be it. But I'm not going to be the guy that says, hey, I'm going to bet the Sixers. And I'm like, wait a second. They're down 26.5 because Joel Embiid could barely get up and down the court with his headache here. I can't be on the Sixers tonight for that type of information. Now, granted, later in the day, we'll get some updated information on who's in, who's out, and who's feeling better, and that could change my mind. But when the bad vibes start coming out the day of the game, or the morning of the game, I should say, and not in a positive direction, it's hard-pressed to find me, the Sixers on the road, getting a victory tonight if their big man isn't 100%, Ben.
It's a good point, DRS. When you look at how this series has played out, we are already starting to build in the narratives and the conversations. With that being said, both Oubre and Embiid, more importantly, JoJo, still have their props listed on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Always an indication of who is going to be available and out there. Joel Embiid, 32.5. But it's not the highest number in terms of player points tonight. That would be Jalen Brunson, 34.5 for the New York Knicks. He went over that number in both games, 3 and 4 in Philadelphia. He has attempted at least 26 field goals in all 4 games, but he was inefficient actually inside Madison Square Garden. Much better at the Wells Fargo Center over the weekend in Philly. 47 in game 4, 39 in game number 3. Also double-digit assists in both of those games. His assist prop tonight, 8.5, and the over has some plus money. When we look at this game overall, Philadelphia now an underdog once again. How does that play for the 76ers in this matchup? As we have looked at this series, Donnie, in these 4 games so far, the New York Knicks were a home favorite in a home underdog in home favorite, got that all mixed up, in game number 1, did cover that game winning by 7, did not cover in game number 2, also a 4.5-point favorite. Now that 4.5-point spread once again. What do you think of the total tonight? 203, lowest number we have seen so far in this series.
By the way, watching game number 4 in Philadelphia, now they had an okay scoring first quarter, but it was evident right away that was going to be an unbelievable game that was going to be played that, yes, if you take a 3-1 series lead, you're going to be in the driver's seat, or the Philadelphia 76ers evening that game up, that was going to be big. And 3-point shots weren't falling down. That was an easy under to take a look at if you're just one of those guys who, you know what? I don't really know how this game is going to go. Let me check in about midway through the first half. Easy under. I do think we get more scoring tonight. But having said that again, we're handicapping this game early in the morning with Joel Embiid is questionable for the game. So if Embiid misses the game, this number might as well be 9.5 at game time. Because we told you earlier with Coach on, The difference between Joel Embiid on the court and off the court, it's night and day. The Sixers won't even be able to hang around in this game if he's not there. And also, keep in mind, bad shooting performances usually don't translate over to the next venue, right? It's like, okay, that could be a one-off here. The reason I bring that up is guys like Dante DiVincenzo, which were three-point mavens throughout the regular season, particularly at home. He was very good in games 1 and games 2, disappeared in 3 and 4. So if those guys, the B guys, I'm saying, are able to shoot the three-point shot and make open looks here, that's going to open everything up. I'm not going to bet the under 203 tonight. I look for more as a total going over tonight. But again, that's predicated on Joel Embiid playing tonight and playing well.
So Philly won Game 3, 125-114. The only time in this series they have scored more than 105 points. That total was 205.5. At the time, the lowest in this series. It goes well over. Game 4 total was on the rise by about 3.5 points at 209. Neither team gets to 100. Game stays well under. We have now dropped the total by 6 points. Feels like a slight overreaction. I actually like the over tonight inside Madison Square Garden. The other clinching spot is a road team favored inside the Pfizer Forum. Indiana up 3-1 in this series and a 4-point favorite in Milwaukee. We do not expect, and based on this line, for either Giannis or Damian Lillard to play tonight. Total now up by 1.5 to 216. Is it over tonight in Milwaukee?
It better be over tonight. And the reason I bring that up is if you're not going to get Giannis or Damian Lillard, I don't care that this game is at home in Milwaukee and it's tough to win on the road, which I get it is specifically in the playoffs. And you're probably going to get a good punch out of the Bucks even without their stars. But don't give any momentum back to Milwaukee where you could turn the page and say, all right, the Bucks made it through a game where they thought they were going to lose. Giannis comes back. They win another game. And then Damian Lillard miraculously heals up that Achilles here and says, you know what? It's feeling better today. I'm going to give it a go. You look at that line and it screams the Pacers are going to close this thing out. Opening up as a 3.5-point favorite overnight. That now sits at 4. Even some outlets out there, Ben, showing 4.5, a total of 216. This should be a Pacers game tonight. So if I'm betting this, right, and I'm saying to myself, what would you like to see out of the Pacers? You want to see them put their thumb down immediately from the opening jump right through to halftime. Don't give the home crowd a chance to get into this game. Be up 5 points at the end of the first quarter, 7 points by the half, where you can't look to Giannis and or Dame coming off the bench to save you in this game. Put them down early here. That's the way I would bet it. I do think the Pacers win. I'm not going to lay the 4 points full game. I'll take the first half here because I want to know if the Pacers are for real right out of the jump, and I believe they will be.
It's been pretty easy to follow the correlation between team that wins in point total in this series. Milwaukee won Game 1, only under we have seen. Indiana has won Games 2 through 4. Every game has gone over. The Pacers have been that up-tempo, paced-up team all year long. Game 3 needed overtime to send us over, but Indiana has scored at least 120 points in Games 2, 3, and 4, all 3 victories for the Pacers. And Donnie, we're getting to that point, right? When a season comes to a close, quickly the attention turns to an offseason. What's going to happen in Phoenix? We expect this group to be very different next year. We have talked a lot about the future of Los Angeles and LeBron James. Same questions tonight in Philadelphia for the future of this 76ers organization and in Milwaukee, both head coach and otherwise, if both teams get closed out in 5 games in this opening round.
There'll be big changes on both teams, but think about the 76ers here. Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey will be back in another open slot there for a max contract with Tobias Harris leaving. So if you're the Sixers and you lose, there's still some optimism next year you can rebuild and build around. I don't know where Milwaukee goes head coaching-wise and superstar player-wise. I don't know if it gets better, but the Sixers have a chance to improve themselves and actually get scoring and get great play out of a guy like Tobias Harris who never provided that. But you know what? That contract for the next guy, it just might.
Tobias Harris, a max player.
Toby!
10.5 is the points prop. Gotta go over. Our third and final game of the triple header on this Tuesday night around the association is not a clinching scenario. It is, however, a change of venue back to Cleveland. Donnie, the story of this series has been whoever has had home floor advantage, they win and do so rather easily, and the losing team can't break 90 points. Do we see the same thing happen tonight back in the land between the Cavaliers and the Magic? Cleveland booked as a 5-point favorite against Orlando. Total not as low as maybe you would expect at 2-0-2. Will the theme of this series, home floor advantage, low-scoring games, come to fruition once again in Game 5?
I hope so, because I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. I need them to advance to cash in on a parlay ticket. And this series couldn't have started any better for me with the Cleveland Cavaliers at home. So my thought process was the Orlando Magic just aren't ready for prime time. Even though they're going to go home, I expect at least one game victory here in games 3 or games 4 for the Cleveland Cavaliers and a chance for a gentleman's sweep once you get home to Cleveland. But the fact of the matter is, like, Cleveland didn't even show up in Orlando, Ben. It was they got smacked around in games 3 and game 4. Like, you couldn't even build on it. Like, hey, you know what? Lost by 2 points, lost by 5 points. Good to get back on our home court. So is this one of those equations where the Cleveland Cavaliers think they can just turn the gas back on here? They can flip that switch and win this basketball game with ease? I hope that's the fact here. But the momentum clearly no longer with the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's with the Orlando Magic. I look at that 5 number, and even though I am rooting for the Cavaliers tonight, I don't know if I can lay the 5 with them, even though what I saw in games 1 and 2 seemed like it was 2 years ago, Ben, even though it was 2 games ago.
Certainly so. Listen, Cleveland in games 1 and 2 won both by at least 10 points, covering as a 5 and 5.5 point underdog, respectively, in those 2 games. Pretty similar number here. As we shared, Cleveland went on the road to Orlando, struggled to put up points, didn't break 90. The Magic won easily in both of those, and Orlando scored 121 in game 3, 112 in game number 4. The Magic becoming the first team in this series to break through the century mark. Because even in the games in the land that Cleveland won comfortably by double digits, they did not score 100 points. I'm going under tonight, 2-0-2 for game number 5 in the land.